Hey there, folks. I just wanted to give a few quick updates on what's going on with the channel. I know we've been posting inconsistently. Part of that is due to a lot of us entering the spring season, so we're getting busier with our everyday work that we pay the bills with. And then we have some of our members getting ready to move once they finish graduating and are getting ready for the next school year. So there might be some inconsistency with video releases at that point too. We are going to try and move to filming online, so that just might take us a little bit to get figured out. And then a few other things that I wanted to let everybody know is we are getting ready to go to a few events here locally in the Denver area. We're going to go to the Stock Up charity event, which is hosted by Basics and Everyone's Bad at Magic. They are both great channels that you should go check out, and we're excited to go and support a good cause. They're doing a fundraiser for artists in recovery, which is an awesome thing. The next event that we will be going to is just the week after. We have some members going to the partner charity event that MTG Basics is putting on. The conditions for this tournament is every commander has partner in its text box. If you want to get in touch with any of us, join our Discord to get in touch with us if you have any questions about decks, deck lists that we're hoping to release here soon, as well as enjoy some fun channels that we have recently added, like our daily Wordle channel. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, we are now affiliates with Tame Dog TCG. They are the creators of Sentry Sleeves. These sleeves are the best that I've used on the market. They don't get the gamer gunk as fast, and they do a great job with just shuffle feel for an extended period of time, so you don't have to replace them as often. They do outer sleeves, inner sleeves, and I know that the owner is working on hard inners, which a lot of our community likes. So go check them out and use our code down below. I'll just have that linked underneath the description and the website tag. So enjoy.
This video is sponsored by Tame Dog. Check out their products, including Sentry Sleeves, in the description below, and use code SQUANDERING5 for 5% off your purchase.
For today's video, I just wanted to go over the card Necrodominance, because I think that it is a slightly underutilized card when it comes to Grixis Turbo Shells. It is obviously a worse version of Necropotence, but I think it still has the ability to convert nearly as well if your deck is built for that instant speed win in your end step after putting all the cards in your hand. This card heavily relies on having a flash enabler or extra turn spell, so that is something to be aware of. We're going to go through some examples of it with my Rogsai list to show the process of how I typically convert with it. Okay, so I've moved over to a Sculpted 3. This will emulate that we rolled it down to 3. This is probably one of the best 3s you can do other than just having actual Necropotence here. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the turn goes. So we'll start off. So for clarity's sake, I will keep my hand over here revealed. That way everybody can follow along and see what decision trees I make, as well as make your own as we go through the video. Feel free to leave those in the comments if you think there are better plays or sequences that I can make. But let's go ahead and get started with our turn 1 draw for Grinding. Grinding station is kind of whatever in this situation, but we will play our Bloodstained Iron, and we will crack it and fetch, going down to 39. Okay, I found this Badlands. I specifically got a Badlands, that way I have access to red and black. The black is obviously important, so I can cast this Dark Ritual to cast the Necrodominance. The red pip is important here because we need 2 red pips to cast a Final Fortune in case that's our only option. Of course, you always want the Born Upon a Wind over it as long as you get enough mana in your hand off of the 35 cards or however many you put in your hand. So let's go ahead and refill. I like to just do 7 life, so we'll go down to 32. I like to do 7 life first since we do have to sculpt down to 5. But this lets me look for mana as well as protection in case I have to delay another turn or there's another turbo deck in the pod. So off of this we flipped Last Chance, Valley Floodcaller, Yawgmoth's Will, Rain of Filth, Vexing Bauble, and Mana Confluence. So we certainly want to keep Mana Confluence. Off of this, it looks like we would be able to do a Valley Floodcaller if we were to cast a Rain of Filth, load a blue, and put the 2 black into our pool off of sacrificing our lands. So this is an option. Also, Valley Floodcaller is harder to interact with. Or we could go the route of Last Chance. This will obviously depend on how interaction heavy you think your pod will be. But for this example, I'm going to keep the Mana Confluence, Valley Floodcaller, Rain of Filth, Crater's Grasp, and we'll just keep the Last Chance just in case. So we are putting the other 3 cards into exile, since all cards go to exile with Necrodominance. So moving to our next turn, we will untap, upkeep, we skip our draw step because of Necrodominance. We will play our land for turn. We also should have cast Rograk last turn, so with a misplay like this, unfortunately you open yourself to your Valley Floodcaller getting Mindbroke Trap, but that's just something where if you're paying better attention, you can cast the Rograk as your last spell in turn 1. We'll just hope that since I made this mistake, I'll just play it as if I do have to play around the Mindbreak Trap. So here's the Rograk. I'm not going to cast the Valley Floodcaller now because we would have to go spell 2, spell 3, which it opens us up to more ways to get stopped. So I am going to hit the Necrodominance button first. That way I have backup to protect either this Valley Floodcaller or this Last Chance. So let's go ahead and go down to 5 life. I usually choose 5 life because it lets you not have to worry about your pain lands if you have to go into an extra turn. It also allows you to keep Force of Will and Vampiric Tutor open, as well as it's not uncommon for you to have to Vamp Tutor and Gitaxian Probe, both which takes you down to 1 life. So we're going to go down to 5, which means that we're going to draw 27 cards. These are draws, so if you ever do run into somebody responding to this trigger with an Ogre's Bowmasters, that is okay. You will have these cards accessible before the Bowmasters triggers can resolve. If there is the Bowmaster, then you have to win at the instant speed point instead of with the extra turn. Okay, so here is our pile. So to start off, I always like to look at what option I need to go with. So we have Valley Floodcaller and Final Fortune look like our 2 best bets. The Final Fortune, again, is only an option if they do not respond to these draw triggers with a Orcish Bowmasters. And then the next thing I like to always do is separate my mana. So for our amounts of mana, we have Lotus Petal, Paradise Mantle will not matter, Jeska's Will, Soul Ring, Chromatic Star can help us filter and also crack a top deck tutor if we ever run into that. We have the Rain of Filth, of course, as well as a Dramatic Reversal, which both act as rituals. Then we have the Simian Spirit Guide, Mana Vault, Grim Monolith. We do have the Burgi, but the Burgi obviously will not be able to get cast by the Valley Floodcaller. If it were Born Upon a Wind, this is not a bad option to start with after you're Born Upon a Wind, because you can do fun little tricks like cast the Burgi, cast a bunch of your rocks to generate a bunch of your red mana, and then you can finish with the Chain of Vapor on the Burgi and the Necrodominance as long as you have a land up. That way you can recast the backside of Burgi and access way more cards off of these before you have to discard them. First thing you have to do is enable your ability to play at instant speed. There's a few routes to ensure that you can make it safer for yourself. Something you can do to turn off Fierce Guardianship for while you're going through and generating mana is snap back a commander. We can pitch the Brain Freeze since we have other ways of cracking top deck tutors. So I'll just start with the snap back, target somebody's commander, pitching the Brainstorm. These will both go to exile because of the Necrodominance. Now we can tap the Badlands for a black, cast our Rain of Filth. Rain of Filth will go to exile. If we have to back it up, we can pitch the Simian Spirit Guide and Pyroblast. Unfortunately, we did not get any other backups, so this is a do or die situation, so to say. We will then tap and float a blue mana, losing a life, going down to 4. We'll sacrifice both of these lands to generate 2 black. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and cast our Valley Floodcaller. Again, we have the backup of the Simian Spirit Guide with Pyroblast. Typically, people have to use specifically the Mindbreak Trap since we cast our Rograk in our Snapback, or a Force of Will. Not many people run good ways to stop creatures from entering on the stack. But now that we've done that, we can go ahead and go down the line of generating our mana. So we can do Lotus Petal, pitch a Simian, cast a Mana Vault. Typically what I try to do when I'm generating mana is just be as hit conscious as I can. There are a lot of these spells that make mana don't require us to have mana pips up, thankfully, but we do have some that will matter. So we have the Jeska's Will, as well as any of our ways to actually look for a win here since we did not draw into it. With the Mana Vault, we'll go ahead and float 3 mana. We'll cast the Soul Ring. We'll use the other 3 to cast the Grim Monolith. This is still a +1. The next thing I would go ahead and do is use my Lotus Petal. So we will be losing our access to another pip other than the Chromatic Star. This is okay. Since we are playing a turbo deck, we are banking on people not being able to keep it responsible, or we would have had to have dealt with it sooner in the turn before this resolved. But we'll use the red and 2 here to cast a Jeska's Will. Typically on turn 2 you're looking at about 6 mana with this. So we'll generate the 6 mana, and since we have Rograk in play, we'll flip these 3 cards. We got Misdirection, Daze, and Rhystic Study. The Misdirection will be nice in case we need to defend anything now. The days, unfortunately, is shut off because we had already sacrificed our lands. And Rhystic Study is kind of like a backup plan, which isn't entirely what we're looking for in this situation. Now that we have resolved the J-Will and we have all this mana, I'm going to go ahead and cast the backside of Birdie so we can start filtering out the cards we don't need in this hand. Cornfield is on the stack. We're going to pretend that somebody has something to try and stop this because this is a cannot resolve spell. Otherwise, we get to look at a ton more cards. So I would just start with the misdirection here. I'm pitching a dramatic reversal. I want to keep the Chain of Vapor because if we do have to breach line, we can get rid of the Necrodominance with the Chain of Vapor. Otherwise, we have to specifically flip Otawara or Beseech the Mirror. That way we can sacrifice this and bargain it. So we'll start with that. We'll also say we have to use the Pyroblast just to be fair that people should be keeping responsible. After using those two pieces of interaction, we're going to say that the Horn can resolve. And now we are going to start filtering through the cards that we don't need here. That way we are able to try and develop more mana and hopefully convert that into a win. So the first thing that you can always do is get rid of lands. Something to be aware of is it is important that you keep at least a land. That way you can cast a Mox Diamond if you hit it. So for that, I would just keep a Rainbow land. That way we have the most options, because unless you're tracking what targets are left for your fetch in the bin, or that you have already seen, the fetch lands could whiff. So we'll just start with getting rid of lands to the Horn. Something I did earlier that I should not have is put my exile pile into my hand. This now matters because of the Horn. So we will flip into our exile here, and we will have our actual hand on this side. We did see more mana, but we don't need to rush anything. We'll get rid of another land, flip 2 more cards. This is incredible for a Rograk. We do have the ability to filter through either Chromatic Star or Talisman to make 4 mana, which lets us Praetor Grasp if we need to. We also did hit Tainted Pact, but we cannot cast Arthas's Oracle yet. Let's pitch another land, just so we get as much information as we can before we start making decisions. You want to get rid of all of the junk that you have no ability to use effectively. That way you can try and replace it with tools out of your deck that actually matter. We don't need Necropotence because we're already down to 4 life, so we'll pitch this. We're seeing a lot of our protection here, which is good. We only need 1 of the extra turn spells, so we'll get rid of the Last Chance. And there's that Mox Diamond I was talking about, which is why we kept the starting town. So we'll just develop that and get it out of the way. This is just another exile pile over here since we have this card in play. Ragavan won't matter at instant speed, so we'll pitch Ragavan. Some more mana here, more protection. Ad nauseam will also matter. There's that Vampiric Tutor I talked about earlier, which is super nice to have since we have Chromatic Star. Chromatic Star allows us to crack our Vampiric Tutor without having to spend extra life on something like a Gitaxian Probe. Now that we've developed this far, it's probably safe to say that people are out of interaction, and if they aren't, we do have some backup here. So I'm going to cast this Lion's Eye Diamond. I'm also going to cast this Rite of Flame just to generate more mana. So let's generate 2 red mana. Let's just get our 3 floating out of the way. We also have another filter here with the Springleaf Drum. This is a net neutral, which is just fine because it allows us more pips. From here, you have a pretty safe breach line. We haven't hit Brain Freeze yet, unfortunately, but we will fuel our bin here, and we also have 2 tutors accessible. So we're gonna go ahead and use the Valley Flood Caller here to cast Chain of Vapor. We'll target our Necrodominance, which will let us return that to hand. When Chain of Vapor resolves, this is still in play, meaning that you do have to put the Chain of Vapor into exile, so we will lose access to it, which is just fine. So now we can combine our exile pile with our graveyard here. And then now that we've done that, we can go ahead and cast this Underworld Breach. I'm going this route because we still don't have a way to instant speed cast the Thassa's Oracle, and we are running a little bit low on mana. However, we could keep digging and hope we hit something, but we have what we need here, so I don't see a point in doing. I do not see a need to currently do that. We still have the horn, so let's get rid of this Necrodominance. Flip 2 more cards into our exile. More mana, which is incredible. We'll cast it. Now that we have now that we've gotten this far, there's a really high likelihood that we can just convert with this pile we have here. The way I would go about doing this is doing the Vampiric Tutor, going down to 2. This could put Brain Freeze on top of our library. Then we can discard a card. That way we can have access to it right away. And then we have the LED. So let's go ahead and go through that. We're going to add a black to our mana pool with the Mox Opal. Cast this Culling Leak. We'll sacrifice Rograk. Since we're doing a breach line, I'm going to put Rograk in the bin. So this will generate 4 black mana. Since we're here, we can go ahead and keep generating our mana. So I'll discard this Demonic Council. I'm just going to discard 2 more cards, that way I can turn on Threshold for Cabal Ritual. We'll ditch the Paradise Mantle. Now we have Threshold. We'll use the colorless and 1 black. Cast this Cabal Ritual. This will generate us 5 more mana. So we will go to 8 black. So we did generate the extra 5 black mana here. Luckily, when we discarded Paradise Mantle to get the Threshold, we did flip Brain Freeze. If we did not, that is still an option that we're able to do with the Vampiric Tutor and pitching one of these other cards. But now we have a full breach line assembled, and with backup here. The last thing I would just mention is it's worth, if you can afford it, with your graveyard size, to always have 3 mana up to hold up interaction. That way you can still deflecting SWAT or whatever else you need to do. Since SWAT and Fierce are in exile though, we could just go the route of casting our Rograk, pitching 3 cards here, and then continuing to go for our full breach line with the LED, Brain Freeze, Thassa's Oracle, because we do still have a Born Upon a Wind in library. So now that we've done that, let's reset and look at another variation of this. Okay, so we've sculpted down to our opening 3 again. Again, this is the perfect one of the best 3s that you can mulligan down to. Hopefully you don't always have to mull down to 3, but for our practice purposes, we are doing that. So we'll start turn 1 by drawing. We got a Vampiric Tutor, which is a really good way to set up your turn 2 go. But for now, we're just going to start with our command tower. I'm still going to cast the Necrodominance turn 1, because that is when people are least likely to have any pieces of interaction. And then this time we will start with a Rograk out on turn 1, so this will be our 3rd cast. It's important that this is our last cast, because this piece is much less important than this, and we don't want to open ourselves up to Mindbreak Trap. So now that we've done this, we will do our sculpt. So I'm just going to pay 7 life here and go down to 33. You'll notice I did start with Command Tower this time. It's just for the sake of keeping more options, and then since we're practicing, it's okay to give yourself a little bit of grace. So we'll flip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 cards. These are draws, so you do see them right away. For this sculpt, I'm going to keep the Misty Rainforest because this lets us thin a land out of our deck. That way when we send it on our next turn for the 28, we're less likely to hit an extra land. The Mana Vault and the Cabal Ritual are just extra mana, which is always important when you're trying to go for the push. Our Vampiric Tutor, so we can put our Flash Enabler on top of our deck before we push with the Necrodominance. And then Snapback is just a piece of interaction to get rid of a commander or anything else to turn off free interaction. So Ragavan, Gemstone, and Mana Confluence will go to exile. For our next turn, we'll untap, we'll upkeep, we'll skip our draw, play this Misty Rainforest for turn. I'm just going to do a fetch now. So we're going to fetch with our Misty Rainforest and go down to 32. What I'm going to do here is get a Volcanic Island. The reason I'm getting the Volcanic Island is when we push the button for a bunch of cards here, it gives us a higher chance to hit a Final Fortune or be able to cast a Final Fortune. So here's this. It's important that you do this because it opens you up to the most lines and options. Another thing we could try and do is just cast Mana Vault here and then push the button and hope we hit Born Upon Wind or Valley Flood Caller. Your percentage-wise, you want to percentage-wise give yourselves the best chance to hit either a Flash Enabler or extra turn. And so going this route and not casting the Mana Vault opens up, so we still have access to 2 cards, and then if we hit any free mana, that we have access to 3. Anyways, we are going to go down to, let's do down to 3 this time. So we are spending 29 life. So we're going to set our hand over here once again. That way everybody can follow along. Our life total is up here. These are draws, so they go right to our hand. There's the Final Fortune, which is important in case we have to just sculpt and go to an extra turn. Okay, so we did only find the Final Fortune as our outlet, and so for this example, we'll just do a Final Fortune and sculpt. There are game actions we can take before we have to do this. So the first one I'm going to take is cast the Final Fortune. I'm doing this first, that way it's the hardest to interact with. And then we have the backup of Daze, for Flare of Duplication if we need it, Deflecting Swat, and that looks like it's it. So once we've cast the Final Fortune through these pieces, if it doesn't resolve, that's just unfortunate. We will now use the Snapback before it goes to exile anyways. So we'll do that with just the Gitaxian Probe here. We'll snap back something to tempo people down. And since this is resolved, we now need to figure out how we're going to win on our next turn. There's a good chance that you do not have to worry about interaction here, because if your Final Fortune already got to resolve, there's a good chance that players are out of anything to stop you on your next turn, unless it's specifically Silence or Orum's Chant. So what we're going to do is sculpt to keep as much mana as we can, along with the tutor for getting a combo piece. So for my final sculpt, I'm going to keep Calling the Weak, Cabal Ritual, Beseech the Mirror, Mana Vault, and Demonic Tutor. Now we're just going to move on to our final fortune turn. The rest of these will go into exile. So then we'll untap, upkeep, not draw because of Necrodominance. From here, we're going to cast the Calling the Weak, Eating Rograk. Rograk will go to zone because we don't want him to go to exile permanently. This will generate 4 black. We will now use one of it to cast our Mana Vault. Float 3 colorless mana. And now we can go ahead and cast our Cabal Ritual, which will put us up to 5 black. This will also go to exile. So now that we're at this point where we've generated a bunch of mana, we have Demonic Tutor and Beseech the Mirror. It's important that we do Demonic Tutor first. So go to 4 and 1. We'll cast this. We'll go to exile. This will allow us to go get our last piece that we'll need, which is this Demonic Consultation, because we're going to do a Thassa's Oracle line, since we got rid of our other pieces in the last one. Before I shuffle too much, we're just going to cast this last one. Beseech the Mirror, sacrificing Necrodominance. And now we can go cast our Thassa's Oracle off of the Beseech. And once that enters, we can hold priority and cast the Demonic Consultation, flipping our library. And that's your best Final Fortune pile that I found out of those. There's possibly other routes, but it's still a turn 2 win because none of your opponents got to see their turn 3. And that just goes to show the power of how strong Necrodominance can be. It's a lot more risky of a card because in that Skulk we didn't get to keep interaction in order to do that. But there's a high likelihood that your opponents didn't have it if they didn't stop the Final Fortune and you did not get silenced in your upkeep. If that happens, that's just how it is. We're playing a risky playstyle since we're in Turbo. But those are 2 examples of how Necrodominance can convert, both at instant speed and extra turn. Sometimes you do just whiff on it, and you're more likely to do so since it's you don't get replacement triggers off of stuff going to exile. Thanks everybody for looking at this card with me. I think it's a lot better than a lot of people give it credit to, and those are just 2 ways that it can convert at instant speed and then with the extra turn. It is a lot riskier of a card compared to Necropotence, and it is worse. There's no arguing that. But I think the card can convert Grixis Turbo Shells specifically nearly as efficiently in terms of percentages on getting to the win. I'm sure there's math that goes through it and everything, but this is an opinion based off of my experience with it. So if people disagree or have better ideas on what I could have done with those 2 piles, let us know in the comments. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you next time we're posting a video.